Hello and welcome to the Firstpost pole position where we discuss all things Formula One and motorsport. Joining us today, Mithila Mehta and Kunal Shah are Formula One experts all the way from Norway. Hi guys, very good to see you.
Hey.
So of course it's the Formula One off season and we have our racers on holiday, catching up on TV shows, going to exotic places. But we are just here to discuss more about the sport and what the sport can do and what we are looking forward to in 2018 season. We did a season wrap last week, and so if you missed out on that, do go to the Facebook page and check it out. Today we look forward to the coming season and we talk about things that we want to see. You know, we talked about what we've seen so far. So let's just take a look into the future. Kunal, obviously, as we discussed, this was the first full season under Liberty Media. And we touched upon a bunch of things that they could maybe improve. But before we get into, specifics of what they should try and do this year, what do you think they've gotten right in their first year?
I think what they've specifically gotten right in their first year is the marketing part of Formula One. The social media updates that we've been seeing, the social media engagement, sharing of content, etc., is actually really good. And that's worked really well. And like we spoke in the last episode, that this is the easier part of the product to fix. Okay. So not just the Formula One social media handles, but the fact that Liberty Media relaxed the rules for teams to use social media handles in a far more engaging manner is also been one of those things that I would say are the highlights of the marketing steps that Liberty Media has taken towards making Formula One more fan friendly.
Okay, so that's obviously things that they've sort of done right. Mithila, maybe if you were to just touch upon, obviously you was their first season in charge, completely in charge. But was there something that maybe you were a little disappointed by, or maybe you expected to see and did not in the past season?
I think it's just too early to pass judgment on what they're doing. But honestly, what I could tell from this season, their first full season in the driver's seat, they're making all the right noises. So, they're saying all the right things when it comes to, having a more equal playing field in terms of distributing the prize money kitty, in terms of DRS, a lot of other topics as well. What I am now wondering is how much of this intention, which seems to be in the right place, is actually going to convert into action. And, because Formula One is a complicated affair. So, whether their intention is going to be supported by the rest of the fraternity as well to turn into action.
Yeah. We have a lot of people just coming in and putting their comments. Hi, Mahesh. Hi, Amit. I hope you're watching and I hope you enjoy our show. The question that we're asking today is what would you want to see in 2018? So in case you guys have any suggestions, ideas, or, just things that you want to see, just put it in the comments and we'll take it up. Kunal, I'll throw it to you first, first and foremost, because we talked about circuits so much this year. We talked about how different they are, how, sometimes that's great, sometimes that doesn't play out so well. If there was one thing that you would like to see change in terms of the circuits that maybe Liberty Media could somehow do in the 2018 season, what would that be?
I think I definitely want to see, a large part of the circuit marketing money that people usually spend. A certain percentage of that could go into making sure that circuits become more overtaking friendly. And by overtaking, I don't really mean this, the DRS switch that you flick and you go past. What I mean is I want to see close wheel to wheel action between the mini cars, at least to start with 2 cars, if nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that circuits can make certain modifications to make sure that they get the cars to race, closer to each other. And of course, then we can look at what the cars need to do so that they're able to race close to each other. But I would certainly say that modifications to make sure that they enable more close circuit racing. And, I'll give the example of Abu Dhabi. They spend so much money on fireworks and illumination, and it's a dusk racing Grand Prix, and they've got a tunnel, and all of that looks really sexy on camera. Okay, but what doesn't look sexy on camera is when a Mercedes or a Ferrari or a Red Bull keeps a 1.5 second gap between the cars just because the dirty air of the car ahead is unable to let the car behind come close enough. So a certain part of that marketing money that the organizers spend to make circuit look so good,
Yeah.
They should that spend parts of that on making sure that racing also looks good at their circuit.
Yeah. And obviously on the show we've had plenty of questions of is India returning to the calendar? We always get that question or comment from our fans saying, will we ever see the BIC being used again for F1? But if you had one new city or circuit that you could pick, which you feel should be there on the calendar, because we all obviously see France make a return, but we're also saying goodbye to a really favorite circuit of ours as well. Mithila, if you had like a wish list, maybe just some circuit. Of course, as Indian fans, we want to see Formula One return to India, but that seems a little bit of a stretch at the moment. But just in case, in terms of circuit, that there's something that excites you.
Kunal will take that because he has a long wish list.
So I would say we should have the Indian Grand Prix back.
Yeah.
That would be an awesome thing. Although I don't think India is ready for Formula One yet. I would also like to see Malaysia go. It's just gone off the calendar, but I'd love to see them back on the calendar as well. And then even there's been talk of Grand Prix in Las Vegas and in London and more street specific races to happen. And I'm sure Liberty Media is going to be exploring all they can because to quote them, they said there are at least 40 to 45 organizers who expressed interest in hosting a Formula One Grand Prix in the near future.
Yeah, and I'm sure they want this sport to sort of spread and go to new areas, where more fans can access it. But let's see how 2018 pans out, especially with the two.
And I would focus on quality over quantity because if you have even a 16 or an 18 race calendar, okay, and this is not to say that I'm for lesser races in the season, but if you had a calendar which allowed for more close competition, okay, like we had in the first half of 2017. Then suddenly the number of races don't really matter. It's the quality that each race is going to deliver that takes more precedence, at least for me.
So do you think maybe it's possible to just sort of, rejig the current circuits to make them more competitive in terms of the overtaking that we see? Because some of them are really narrow circuits, especially the street circuits,
Correct.
where as a result, the cars are just limited in terms of what they can pull off. But I don't know. I don't know how that gets fixed. Baku was a really exciting race this year,
Exactly.
but I mean, I don't know how often we can expect that kind of result with the current circuit.
The good part is that Liberty Media has already said, or rather, they in fact said this after we said it in the last episode. So who knows if they're listening? But they already said that they are going to be looking at tweaking circuits for the future seasons, and that's actually a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay, Mithila, we know the Halo cockpit is one of the new additions we're seeing in the cars for 2018. But do you think any modifications for the cars that could maybe just make the sport a little more exciting, or maybe bring in more fans, or just help out the drivers? What changes would you want for the cars?
We've honestly spoken a lot about the Halo, and I think ultimately now that matter is out of our hands, and it's a question of safety, and we're always all for safety. I think apart from how the cars look, the other aspects that we've talked a lot about is how the cars sound. And there's been a lot of discontent from the fans, that the cars just don't sound ferocious enough. And in fact, this was something that the Grand Prix Drivers Association has been continuously recommending as well, that the cars need to sound like Formula One cars. And I know that the FIA is working to address it. So, the entire package of the car and not just the visual aspect. I just wanted to add on to what you guys were saying about the circuits as well. So while it's really important to kind of look at new circuits or just to enhance the existing circuits, there's also circuits like, for example, Singapore. Singapore has not renewed its contract beyond 2020 because they're waiting to see what's going to happen. 2020 is when the teams renew their commitment to the sport. And Singapore is a really important race simply because it literally exemplifies what Liberty Media wants to do with Formula One, the entire spectacle around the racing. So Liberty Media is going to have to work hard to make sure that these very iconic and important races also remain committed to the sport in the time to come.
Yeah. Kunal, we saw a few tweaks and changes for the cars this year. Do you think maybe they helped the season? Do you think they helped the drivers with whatever changes we had in, the breadth of the cars, the tires, like the wings, the tiny changes that we did see? Do you think those were positive, or they helped out in any way?
See, they were certainly positive because we've been reading about, or rather, we through the season we read about how pretty much at every Grand Prix circuit, the previous lap records were being matched or being broken, and how
Yeah.
everyone was proud of how quick the 2017 cars have been. So the beauty of Formula One is that when you put a single car on the circuit and it follows the line and brakes at the right places and apexes at the right angles, uh, it is really quick sport, and the clock never lies about it. But the sort of ugly part is when you put two cars together trying to do the same thing. And that's when, what we spoke about earlier in the show, that cars are unable to go closer to each other. And,
Yeah.
if drivers like Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are the types who are unable to perform as many overtaking maneuvers as they would like to, then you know that there is something wrong in how the cars are. So one of the things that I'm sure that Liberty Media is going to definitely look into is the whole aerodynamic aspect of the current racing cars. So the cars are extremely aero heavy, which is also part of the reason why they're able to achieve such high speeds. Okay. But at some point, there will be a trade-off and a balance that will happen, which allows the cars to be as quick, but at the same time allow them to race closer to each other.
Because we know the cars will look different, but talking about just how they sound, maybe the engines, uh, that's one of the bigger issues. I feel, we're okay with how they look, we look okay with how they race as well. But is there something that they can tweak with the engines, maybe?
I mean, honestly, if it was up to the fans and if it was up to me, I'd say dump the hybrid turbo engines.
Yeah.
Okay. There are the V10s and the V12s that we've raced in the past, and there are lots of engines, really good engines, and engines that are powerful, engines that might not be as economical, I would admit that, but engines that emit the right sounds as well, which are frighteningly loud, if I may call them that. But that's not going to happen. Like the Halo, these hybrid turbo engines are something that we're going to inherit, or we've already inherited from the past seasons. And the engine politics, unfortunately, is what has spoiled the sport. And the balance of the politics is more in favor of the power unit manufacturers, which is Ferrari and Mercedes, pretty much. And in my view, they are able to control the competitive quotient of the grid. So one of the reasons why you may never see a Force India win race is because they are a customer to Mercedes engines. Okay.
Yeah.
And as stupid as it may sound that Mercedes can or may control the pace of the Force India car, there is a possibility for them to do that. And this is also why Ron Dennis did not want to remain with Mercedes when he split way back in 2014. But like I said, the engines are here to stay. It would help to simplify the engines further. There is excessive talk on the NGUK and the NGUH. And what we are expecting here is that we are trying to co-create the whole engine dynamics and the beauty of a hybrid engine with fans. And I somewhere feel that fans are just excited about wheel-to-wheel racing. They want to see Vettel versus Verstappen versus Hamilton. They want to see a Ferrari versus Red Bull versus a Mercedes. They don't really care what engines are being powering these drivers, and they don't really care what engines eventually go in their car and if it's come from a Formula One car.
That's quite an interesting. I don't know how much of it fans think about as much because, like you said, for fans, I think they're more invested in maybe the driver or the constructor, and they don't really maybe know about the nitty-gritties about how the car actually races. But do you think maybe there's a disparity, as you said, in terms of engine, but also in the money that the way the sport functions, what they pay, what they get for where they finish, and things like that. We've spoken about this a little before. We've spoken about how maybe say a Force India or a Renault maybe at a disadvantage as compared to say a Ferrari or Mercedes. But do you think there's a fairer way of distributing the money among the sport?
Obviously, there's a big disparity, and I think all of us know that. The bigger teams like Ferrari and Mercedes and McLaren, in fact, they get paid just to be on the grid, irrespective of how well they do or how well they don't do. They have a lot of historical bonuses which come into play, and obviously they get paid for being iconic teams linked to the sport, which in some way could be seen as fair. But we've seen that, midfield teams and the tailing teams of Formula One have been struggling to survive. And, they're constantly battling bankruptcy and hoping that they get, taken over by a more stable team. I think Force India has been one of those few exceptions that has done well despite being on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Kunal keeps saying that the faster you go is a function of how much money you're investing into the car. And if the bigger teams like Mercedes and Ferrari are anyway just getting so much money from the FIA, it's going to be impossible for the midfield teams to keep up, let alone beat them. The FIA, the Liberty Media Group, they have made certain statements that they're looking to kind of get some sort of equality into place in terms of how money is distributed. But also at the same time, that's only going to be met by a very strong backlash. Ferrari is already saying that they could think of leaving the sport if things don't quite go the way they wanted to. So it's a very narrow line. And one more point: bigger teams like Ferrari and Mercedes are anyway getting more money through sponsorships. Mm-hmm. So it's not just that they're getting from the the sport; they're getting from the sponsors as well. So the gap is only widening between the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, is there maybe a more democratic process of doing this? Would you change the structure is without making some really unrealistic overhaul in the current way the sport works? Is there just something that they could do, maybe one tweak or maybe change a rule, or I don't know, like I honestly don't know how they could make it more fair.
I have a suggestion actually, and see, I would agree that Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull are all teams that add to the iconic status of Formula One. Okay, and by virtue of being former world champions, by virtue of being the oldest team on the grid, by virtue of all the tags that these brands come with, they do deserve some sort of a priority payment. They do deserve some sort of a bonus because of the legacies that they bring along with to Formula One. But are those legacies to run into 50s and hundreds of millions of dollars? I don't really think so. Because, while Formula One is not a two-tier sport officially, by virtue of how the payments are disbursed, we pretty much become a two-tiered sport. It's just that the second tier is racing on equal par on the circuit, but not getting the same benefits and opportunities off the circuit. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a definite way to try and make sure that there is a higher parity between how payments are made. Okay. And I do not mean that there should be equal payments that should go, because it would be ridiculous if Sauber, who were last on the grid with 5 points, get the same amount of money overall as Mercedes, who were I think 200 times the points or something, or 100 times the points. Okay. But the connection to the kind of money that teams are going to be earning are also related to the kind of money that the teams are spending. Okay.
Yeah.
All of this is like a vicious circle. If we were to get the right formula in place for Formula One, which does not cost a lot of money for everyone, then automatically, if you were to reduce the earnings of the teams comparatively, and give them more opportunities to build their brand and build their images rather than just build an engineering challenge, then Formula One will be a far better sport and a business to be a part of. Because, the kind of urgency and the kind of rush that we've seen teams wanting to join Formula E, we've not really seen that with teams wanting to join Formula One. It's almost always a cautious approach. We see what direction the sport is taking. Oh no, it's too expensive for us, etc., etc. And the world's largest and most global automobile corporations are unable to justify their investments and expenses in Formula One.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Vijay Malias out there are going to be putting their money on the sport and how often they're going to do that. So certainly trying to fix this whole circle of life that Formula One is stuck in is going to be a crucial one. And here's the unfortunate part. So in Formula One, you end up pleasing fans, you end up pleasing sponsors, But here's also a sport where you have to keep pleasing the participating teams because they're constantly out there issuing quick threats about them wanting to leave the sport if the sport doesn't deliver why they are actually participating in the sport.
Yeah, it's sort of almost. It's a shame because if a Ferrari threatens to pull out, there is not much that the sport would not be willing to do. They would want to keep them, especially given their legacy. But Liberty Media, if they actually maybe just looked at a couple of other leagues or other sports and how they function, the Premier League obviously has a very equal split from the broadcast money that they get, which sort of enables smaller clubs to spend just as much as a big club gets. Obviously, they have different sponsors, but that's one way it works. The NBA has caps on how much they can spend per team.
Correct.
So that's maybe examples of different models that Liberty Media could look at, especially in American sport, because they have so many different structures that they follow and seem to thrive with that. So
Correct.
hopefully, in the near future, sometime we will.
I'm so glad you mentioned American sport because there's this whole statement that we don't want Formula One to go the NASCAR way, and we want it to be a 5-star Michelin restaurant and not a fast food arena, etc. Honestly, if it were up to me, I just want wheel-to-wheel battles. I'll be happy to see any team win. Like from the 90s, we still talk of how Jordan managed to win a race and how Sauber used to get onto the podiums. But now what's happened is the political balance that's there has made sure that the midfield teams are unable to celebrate such occasional spikes in performances. Like the benchmark is a double points finish, but how exciting is a double point finish if you get it 16 times a season, like India did. So it would be awesome if we were to try and go, I wouldn't say the NASCAR way, but a way in which every team is treated equally and has an equal opportunity to try and score really good results and race wins if they work hard for it. Because that sort of uncertainty is also why Formula One will end up attracting more drivers. I mean, I love the fact that the last episode we all spoke of who's going to be the world champion, and there was a whole prediction that we played out. But it was unfortunate that we all put Lewis Hamilton on top of the pile because we knew he was going to win. And when we do this for 2018, I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be seeing Lewis Hamilton on top of their prediction pile as well. So a lot of thinking for Liberty Media to do. And if along the way a couple of brands fall off the ship and they decide to bail out, I think that's okay as long as it secures the long-term future of Formula One.
Yeah. Mithila, what do you think it would take for a team like, say, Force India, who we've seen do so well, and for them to maybe compete for the title?
I think a lot of forces need to really align to make Force India a title contender. Starting with the fact that, if Liberty Media actually introduces a cost cap like they've been discussing, that would be a big, big, big advantage to the smaller teams who only have that much money to spend. Yeah. And of course, the factor of if they are able to slightly tweak the way payments are being distributed, again, that would be in a team like Force India's favor. Of course, we've been discussing how a customer team like Force India is always going to be on the back foot. And we saw a really ugly side of that this year as well, because Toro Rosso and Renault were, at loggerheads about whether Toro Rosso had received fair treatment.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be difficult for Force India to battle immediately, given that there are so many factors. For example, how are they ever going to fight on track with Mercedes, being a customer team of Mercedes? So a lot of dynamics, a lot of ifs and buts. But we stay ever hopeful, and if Liberty Media does stick to its guns and do a lot of these things, Force India could be fighting for podiums more often, if nothing else.
Yeah, that would be fun to see, I feel.
Yeah, and in my view, Force India is already world champions for the number of points scored for number of pounds spent. So they've been the most economical team when it comes to the kind of money they've had. And imagine if each of the teams were told this is the same amount of money everyone is getting. And then you make sure, the difference between the haves and the have-nots needs to become far lesser than we've seen before in Formula One.
Yeah, and I think also if the monopoly that, the legacy teams sort of have, that does maybe dwindle down a little bit, I think it just makes the sport more exciting. Unpredictability in, I think, any sport is great. But let's see how much of that happens or in 2018 or in the next few years. And of course, something that we talk about so often on our show, as well as fans and experts everywhere talk about it, is the tires. What tires are, who's driving what tires, what tires are suited for what conditions, for what surface. And we will have one more subcategory to that in 2018. Kunal, I'll ask this to you. Tire changes, if any, that you want to see.
Frankly, I'm happy with what Pirelli have put out, in the current season. I'm not the happiest that there's an extra compound for us to memorize for next year. And what I would honestly hope for is I don't care what they call the tires. I just want to make sure that the parity between two different tire compounds is slightly more. So if a
Yeah.
team uses a softer compound as opposed to somebody else using a super soft compound, the battle and the way strategy needs to play out on track, the tire should actually feed into that. So currently we've seen that the parity has not been all that all that great or high, if I may call it that way. So by making sure that there is a difference in the two tire compounds will definitely make for more exciting racing on track.
Yeah. And before we just close out, because this has been sort of what would we want to see in 2018. But if I would just, if you had a wish list of things, just one thing that you hope as unrealistic or as realistic it could be, one change that you definitely want to see, what would that be?
Definitely not the logo, because I think they've got a good logo. It would definitely be none of the drivers, because I think we've got a really fantastic driver lineup in 2018. But still, since I'm on the driver front, I would definitely not want Marcus Ericsson in the Sauber. I think there are more deserving drivers out there. But I also know that Marcus Ericsson is going to shoot his own foot, and we'll see Antonio Giovinazzi in the car somewhere in the middle of the season. But I would like to see Robert Kubica in the car. So that's one change. We've been reading that Sergei Sirotkin might be getting, the seat because he's bringing about $15 million or whatever. But I'd love to see Marcus Ericsson out and Robert Kubica in.
Yeah. Mithila, one change.
Yeah, so I think the one thing that is really important for me for the year ahead is just a more united paddock. A lot of these changes that we're discussing are all contingent upon the teams and the drivers and everyone else coming together. And I know that as things stand, there's a lot of concern and anxiety in the paddock. I guess it's just the fact that whenever there's change, there's always people being really concerned. This was the first year, I think, that the earnings that the teams received actually dropped from the FI. I think it dropped by 15%. And, that's not good news for anyone concerned. I was also reading that this is the first year that all the drivers have actually opted to join the Drivers Association, including people like Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen, who never thought it was important before, simply because they're so anxious about what Liberty Media could bring and how it could impact all of their lives. So it just seems like everyone is really scared. Sergio Marchioni has been saying that, if Liberty Media plans to convert this into a spectacle, Ferrari, wants to respect the noble side of racing and we could well leave. So a lot of different intentions, just a lot of chaos. And that's not good news for any of us. So ultimately, I just hope that everyone is able to sort out their differences and work together for a better sport, which is just what all of us want.
Yeah. I would love to see a first-time winner in 2018. That would be great if we get
Esteban Ocon. I really hope it's Esteban Ocon.
That would be brilliant too. But
I have one more thing to add, because what we've been seeing in Formula One, and one of the reasons why we are where we are in this whole political mess is because Formula One is one of those rare sports in the world where the participants are involved in making the rules. Okay, and one of the rules that's being hotly debated is the use of 3 engines next year, and Red Bull's not okay with it, but the other Ferrari, Mercedes are okay with it, etc. One thing I definitely want the sport to change in time to come, and this is going to be a really tough one, is to have the FIA and the FOM make the rules. and not have this influence from participating teams involved in the rule making process, because we've often seen that when the rules don't go the way they want, we end up with quit threats. And then suddenly everyone wonders how Formula One's going to be without Ferrari or Red Bull or whichever team has issued the threat. And I really hope that's a change that Liberty Media is able to enable as well. And this is probably going to be the toughest to make.
Well, so there you go, Liberty Media, FIA, or anyone out there, if you guys are listening, I think we've made a very long list of suggestions, ideas, changes that we'd like to see that maybe could help make the sport a little bit better and get more fans interested in it. Thank you, Kunal. Thank you, Mithila. As usual, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for watching. It's the off season, but we'll keep you updated with everything that's happening in the sport and around it. Stay tuned for more updates. Do check out firstpost.com, and we'll see you on the next live.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.